Well, welcome to our live edition of Unplugged. We figured that if we were going to do a live episode this week, it was probably not a bad one to do it for two reasons. One, everything changes every 10 minutes at the moment around the COVID ruling. So if that happens again, obviously we'll be able to bring it to you live. But also it sort of allowed us to present maybe a bit of an open forum where Saints fans via our page on Unplugged might be able to share their thoughts on exactly what has happened over the course of the first 10 weeks. I mean, 4-6 on paper doesn't read as a disaster, but if you dig a little bit closer at the percentage, you look at some of the absolute blowouts last week. Obviously, against the Western Bulldogs was as bad a loss as probably any of us can remember against a very good side, but a side we beat in an elimination final last year and outplayed for a large portion of that elimination final. So you shouldn't be losing to the same side that you played in an elimination final by 111 points the next time you meet them. Yes, there's a bit of personnel change, but clearly the issues run a little bit deeper at the Saints. We still wait to see whether the real St Kilda stands up. We hope that that's not it, and I'm fairly certain that it is not it. But we want to see your thoughts in the comments and any questions or observations you may have, and we'll try to get to as many of those as we possibly can. We'll dig a little bit deeper into the teams for the North Melbourne game, which will go ahead. And I don't know about everybody else, but an announcement of a COVID lockdown followed by playing North Melbourne at Marvel in front of no fans makes me very, very nervous based on what happened 12 months ago or more than that when that happened. But Nick, that was a pretty lamentable day last Saturday night. We've had 4 dead set shockers this year, but that clearly the worst of the lot. That was very, very hard to stomach.
It was incredibly hard to stomach. I was saying to H earlier off air that I think that's the first time in about 3 years that I haven't at least watched the replay or an extended highlights package or something like that. It was very hard to sit and watch live in person, and it was a little bit different to the Essendon game. Back in round 3 or whatever that was. In that, they started like they were having a crack early on, but just it just was bad, and then it got worse and worse and worse and worse. And we won hit outs by 30. We lost the disposals by 50. We lost clearances by 13, tackles by 25, inside 50s by 25, with 30 less scoring shots. And obviously the final margin of 111 points is pretty gross. But I guess it's hard to get any worse from there.
Yeah, it's even more so. I mean, Nick said he didn't watch a replay. I actually pretty much missed half the game myself before that, not even looking at any replays or anything. I was out and about, didn't get home till halftime, sat down, and then had to sit through that. And I think I've found myself halfway through the last quarter flicking over and flicking between watching the English Football League playoff instead a little bit. So sort of put it down in our game down the bottom corner and just kept one eye on it. So yeah, it was a very, very ugly evening. As I heard one person say, 111 points may have been flattering with how badly they beat us. It's you should not turn around and lose to a team that you beat in a final the year before by near on 20 goals. It's not something that should happen in any season, no matter how many players you've lost, no matter how many, like, they're missing players too. So there's no real excuse for it.
Cheers to all the names that have popped on that are watching it as well, and a few comments that we'll get to in a moment. Claire Jeans, for one, is talking, good name, the surname, talking about the outs for this week, which we'll get to, which are pretty significant. So, send your thoughts through. But if you look at our beltings this year, so we beat Essendon by 6 goals last year and lost to them by 75. So that's a 111-point turnaround. We beat Port Adelaide by 5 goals, lost to them by 54. So that's an 84-point turnaround. We beat Richmond early in the season by 26, lost to them by 87 or whatever it was. It's a 113-point turnaround. And the Bulldogs were beaten by 3 in an elimination final and by 40 during this season and get beaten by 111. So we're talking 20 to 25 goal turnarounds on results against the same team from the previous season. So to me, it's a very difficult question. Are we the side still from 2020 that won a final and finished top 6? Are we a bottom 4 side? The reality is we might not be either of those two things. We might not be as good as we were last year. I don't think we're as bad as we are now. But, yeah, I mean, we're not a side that is 20 goals worse than the Western Bulldogs. So you've got to dig deeper into why that is happening, whether it's attitude, whether it's system, whether it's faith. I know, talking to Terry Wallace 6 or 7 weeks ago when Port belted us, he said that he had an issue with clubs that went after the Foreign Legion, in the sense that, I know a lot of our best players are players from other clubs, like Jack Steele, for example. But the theory was, from a lot of people, was that, can that side gel together? Will they dig in when it gets really tough? Because they're not born and bred. They haven't been, they haven't gone through the system at the club. They've almost come in and been poached from other clubs. Will they roll up their sleeves and go to war effectively when it gets tough? And I guess the answer, unfortunately, to that at the moment is no.
It's an interesting one. It's not necessarily a theory I subscribe to. I understand it in the concept and in the theory, but in practice, I mean, these guys are professional footballers, right? And just because you are drafted to a team doesn't mean that, you're going to give any more than someone who's 24 and is coming from someone else and has had 4 or 5 years in the system already. I just don't understand that. I kind of, like I said, intellectually, the concept I kind of get, but in reality, I just don't subscribe to it. It is a weird one, and you look at some of those guys that have been our best players, over this year. You look at guys like, Paddy Ryder, when he's been fit and firing, has been wonderful. Zach Jones was our best 2 weeks in a row, pretty much. Jack Steele is, our new captain and our new star and our best player, coming from another club. Last year, Dan Butler was one of our top 5 players coming from another club. Jack Higgins hasn't been terrible. He hasn't been great by any means, but he hasn't been terrible. He's had some good games and some good moments. So, I think it's a bit of an overreaction to this. I think, we spoke right before the season around the way that the list had been built, and it was built to compete, to be competitive. And the way that they kind of topped up for depth, you look at the guys like McKernan and Hunter, and Frawley even, those guys, experienced guys, to bring in some more experience, to bring in some more bigger bodies. And we're there to be backups, really. The reality is that we've had to play all of them at some stage. And that's never part of the plan. You don't bring in backups to play all of them. You bring them in to be a backup on the odd chance that you need one of them. But to have all of them in at multiple periods of this season, that depth has been tested really, really devastatingly hard. And that's not what depth is for. Depth is to fill up numbers and to make sure that you can fill a team on the weekend. But you're never meant to get down to the bottom, the bottom 2 last player on the list. And unfortunately, that's kind of where we've got to with the number of players that were out early and early doors, from week 1, or just after, and the type of players, they were 2 ruckmen at once. That wasn't meant to happen. Key defenders, and the 2 small defenders that have been vital to our structure in Geary and Patton that we haven't been able to replace. And like I said, those 2 ruckmen, you can't replace Rowan Marshall and Paddy Ryder with Paul Hunter and Sean McKernan. It just doesn't matter if they're depth players. They're just not the same. And it's not like for like, and you can't get like for like. So there are excuses. There are valid excuses. Doesn't make it any more palatable to see what's going on, because no matter who's out there, they should be giving 100% effort 100% of the time. Which is one of Grant Thomas's mantras. Which is what Saints footy was all about: 100% effort 100% of the time. And it looks like at times that you're not getting 100% effort from 100% of the team 100% of the time, and you just can't win games of footy unless you're getting that.
And do we believe anything about the whole, we're aiming for 2022, what was said the other day? Do we look at that and think, I can see where they're coming from a little bit.
Yeah.
But when you look at where we were last year, you don't then target going, look, we're still looking 2 years ahead, and going backwards is acceptable, because that puts you back probably further from that 2022. We should be looking going, if we looked at last year saying, we finished top 6, this year should be a similar or slightly better result. And then if next year is the year we're aiming, that's when we should be a lot better. So
I mean,
it really seemed to be correct.
It's a really good point and a really interesting topic. And I reckon we could probably do an entire podcast on that specific conversation, because you look at a number of teams and often there's one year that they overperform and outperform their own expectations. And I think, the way that we performed, the way we played footy, the results from last season, our obviously final season results probably outperformed our own expectations. It's possible that we outperformed internal expectations as well at the same time. And you look at the list profile, the age profile of our list, it certainly wasn't built to contend in 2020. It wasn't built for a sustained finals run in 2020. And it probably wasn't built for a sustained finals run in 2021 either. But having had that run last year and then topped up with the likes of Jack Higgins, Brad Crouch, bringing in Frawley from retirement, Sean McKernan, bringing these big bodies, guys who have played experienced football, you certainly don't expect a backward step. It's entirely possible that we didn't plan on having the year that we had last year and that we overperformed, and that 2022 onwards was kind of the window from the beginning. But you can't say that we're expecting, in preseason, we had a really great year last year. We're expecting to go further and play better and play harder. And, this is our time. You can't do that. And then halfway through the year go, well, actually it's not our time. And we never really thought it was going to be our time. So mixed messages and really strange mixed messages. Having said that, I understand where they're coming from. It's just been delivered incredibly badly.
Yeah. And I guess you spoke about injuries, and injuries explain certain things. So you look at Richmond. So Richmond are missing half their midfield. They're not as good, but they're having a crack. You look at other sides in the comp. The Bulldogs have got more injuries than us. West Coast have got more injuries than us. I know West Coast results have been up and down. The Giants have got more injuries than us. Carlton have got as many injuries as us. North Melbourne have got as many injuries as us. They're having a crack though, and I guess that's the difference. Like, if you sit there and say, if you take Marshall and Ryder and Hanbury and Gresham and Jones out of St Kilda's team, are they going to be as good as they were when they were playing? Of course not. But that's not the point. I guess the point is that there's got to be a base level of effort. You've got to go down swinging. You've got to, you can't just basically roll up your sleeves, fight for half an hour. It becomes apparent you're not going to win the game, so you just put your bag in the back of the car and go home. Like, there's got to be some level of resistance to, and that's the disappointing thing for me, because you just want to know that when the going gets tough, they're up for the fight, and we can't trust them watching them at the moment. You can't sit down at a game or on TV and go, well, they're a bit undermanned. There's a few blokes out, but they'll have a crack. They'll fight it through. They might pinch it. You just don't have that faith. It's a case of, they were on against Geelong and should have won the game. So I guess that's where it's frustrating, because they dominated a game against the top four side, should have beaten them by 6 goals, and then lose by 100 points a week later. So, and that's because they didn't have it on their terms. The Bulldogs were the side that were setting the pace, and when it wasn't on their terms, they were just like, oh, it's not on their terms. See you later. And that's the frustrating part. So yeah, you can never cop that from any side. As I said, I'll never be, as we've always said, you can never demand that a team will win a game of footy. You just can't do it. You can't sit there and say, you must win this game, or therefore you are a disgrace. But one thing you can demand is that whatever happens, you're going to be up for the fight, and we're not. And that's the annoying part about it. If we are up for the fight, we're a pretty good side. But why aren't we up for the fight?
I guess the really frustrating thing, and there's a lot of commentary around culture in footy clubs and the history of footy clubs and whatever, but this is a pattern. This is not just a bad year from St Kilda. This is just another year from St Kilda. It's just happening again. And you get to that point and you just wonder to yourself, why do I do this to myself? Why do I put myself through it? Like, I could go and forget about football. I could go and forget the St Kilda Football Club and go and live a really happy life and never worry. It would be perfectly fine. And yet every week after week, we have our blasts in our chat group, and we go off for 24 hours or 48 hours and we give them a spray internally and sometimes externally on the podcast. And then week after week, we come back and we pay our money and we go and we buy our jerseys and we buy a scarf and we go and sit in the outer, and we love this club. And why do we do it? Why do we do it to ourselves? Because it happens year after year, week after week after week, year after year. Why do we do this to ourselves? It's horrific.
Yeah, I reckon we'd be nearing on 100 years membership between the three of us. So you look at something like that, and it's you do ask that question sometimes. Why am I here? I mean, you think back to early thousands, 2000, 2001, that sort of thing, and we were no good. But geez, you saw some of those players put their head down and just go for it every week, and you go, that's all you ask for. You don't ask for them to. So yeah, as Darren's saying, you have to win this match. We want to see you wear the jumper with pride and play for the team.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you're also playing for the supporters. I mean,
yeah,
you might not be attached to the club as much as what the supporters may be, I guess, in some cases. But when you've got the jumper on, you are. You are the club. So it's just wanting them to get out there and at least have every week 20, 21 of the players look as if they are out there to run through someone to run through them to get the ball first, to basically tackle as hard as possible, to want to be the first player to the ball. That's all they're asking for. But last week we were second to the ball. We didn't want the ball. We didn't want to chase. Didn't want to tackle. Didn't want to do anything. It seemed like for probably 15, 16 players. So
yeah,
it's just not something that is acceptable.
Yeah. There's a comment here from John Zulian on the Facebook post, and he's 100% right. And he said the loss against the Cats was the killer because we outplayed them and still couldn't get the win. And I think that the expansion of that is the week to week inconsistency of effort and intensity. Against the Cats, you couldn't fault them. Yes, they didn't kick straight, but that effort, that intensity, the energy out there, they chased, they tackled, they ran for each other. They put in the full shift from start to finish. They put in the full shift and they dominated. And they showed when they do that, they can be a really good football team. And then you have games like last week where they don't, and some of them are playing at 50%. Some of them probably even less than 50%. And you look at guys like Ryan Burns, who absolutely put in a shift, like tried his hardest and tried his heart out. It was his best game for the club, in my opinion. And you look at kids like that, and if they can do that in a 110-point loss, why can't some of the more experienced guys do the same thing? And just, it's not, obviously the result matters, right? But if they can show that they're having a dip, then there's far less to complain about. And you'd rather be shit every week and see them having a dip than for 1 week go close to beating the premiership favourite and outplaying them completely, and then being demolished by another team who you beat in the final 12 games ago with similar teams. Like it's outrageous, really.
Yeah, it is. It's spot on. And look, just a few comments along that line, just sort of filtering through some of the comments as well. Cheers to quite a few people that have popped in to say g'day. Dom Alardi is a great bloke, but he barracks for North. So on your bike, Dom. Good fella, but we've got a little infiltrator into the group. So see you later, son. We'll have a chat later. Claire says the outs are disappointing. They are. We'll get to that shortly. John Peter Budge is watching. I wonder if that's the John Peter Budge. Nice to have you on board. Mikey Cole, who we spoke to last year as well. John says that he's live in one of those, got to pick the one winner in a comp, wants to know if you should pick the Saints. Probably wouldn't trust us enough for that, John.
If you're going to do it, you may as well do it this week.
Because your lock of the week.
If you're going to do it, you may as well do it this week because I'm not sure what other week you're going to pick us.
I don't know when else you're going to pick us, yeah. No, that's right.
Till we go into a hub.
You've got to use the Saints, maybe, but in saying that, like it's hard to be any. Exactly. Hard to be anywhere near confident. Now looks like maybe a Sydney game next week might be in Sydney rather than at Marvel. So where are we here? A few more people sort of just chiming in. Good to have them with us, watching along the way. But yeah, on the selection, which we'll get to in a moment, but we might full stop that game with some votes for those that are tuning in live that only catch the podcast occasionally. We usually do a 3, 2 and 1. It is pretty tricky. Although in saying that, in beltings like that, it can often be easy because you've only got 2 or 3 good players. But I found 1 vote for Dougal Howard. I thought if not for him, we would have been 100 points down at halftime. Struggled a bit after halftime when the Bulldogs forwards got rolling, but was our best player at halftime. Ryan Burns gets 2 votes. Thought he was very good. 12 marks, 24 touches, both career highs for him. And Jack Sinclair was probably our best player. I thought he got the 3. So 1 to Howard, 2 to Burns, 3 to Sinclair.
I've done exactly the same as you have. As I said, I missed a fair bit of it. I had to go back and have a little bit of a look at bits and pieces and this and that. And as you're saying, if not for Dougal, then yeah, they were going to be absolutely trounced by half time, and you may as well have played Mercy rule right then. So yeah, I was tossing up between him and Ryder because I felt Ryder just about won his position. If you look at I destroyed him in the hit-outs, and I believe he had a pretty good hit-out to advantage rate, but obviously whatever we did with it, straight after that, it was completely nothing. So, yeah, he was the other one I was tossing up. As I said, best game we've had for Ryan Burns. For a young kid, that was a great game, and what is his 4th game now? 4th, 5th, something like that. So, yeah, to be able to put your head up and play, but yeah, to be able to lift your head up in amongst all the other players who were just dragging their feet and do what he did. I'm very happy with what he did. He's got to be someone who keeps getting a game week in, week out. And yeah, 3 to Jack Sinclair. Probably showed more heart than anyone on the ground Saturday night. That's as simple as it is. That's why he's got the 3 votes.
Yeah, pretty similar. I mean, Dougal for me gets the honourable mention. Like you said, I probably had him as our best on ground at halftime. Like you said, it was probably 100 points at halftime, if not for Dougal at that point. But I think he got outpointed a fair bit in the second half. Lost his head a few times, which you can kind of understand given the situation and the pressure that he was under. But I gave 1 vote to Jack Steele. Just does Jack Steele things. I'm not sure we need to say too much. I gave 2 votes to Jack Sinclair. Last week, I thought he was very unlucky. He was my honourable mention last week. I thought he was best on ground to halftime last week and then dropped away. But this week, I thought he was one of the few that put in a real full shift. 28 touches, 584 meters gained. Was just very good. He was clean with the ball. He moved it fast. And was just impressive. I think he's on a real good trend at the moment, and he'd be up there, kind of top 5, top 7 in the best and fairest at the moment. And for the reasons that you both said, I gave Ryan Burns 3 votes. I thought he was our best player for the entire game, especially in some of those effort metrics. He was in and under. He was winning the handball. Didn't lose the ball far. He had 24 touches and only gained 130 meters or so. But he played 85% of the game. Was efficient when he had the ball. He won 3 clearances, 3 tackles. Just kept running and providing an option the entire game. And that's something that not many of his teammates can lay claim to.
Not sure if we lost Darren there now. He's dropped off.
Might have lost Parko. He has some technical difficulties every now and then, Parko. So can you guys still hear us?
Yeah, I think we've just lost Darren. Well, may as well look at what the selection for this week. Oh, he's actually gone completely. He's got to shovel more coal into the fire to get that computer going.
That's it. Out in Cranbourne, got to get the hamsters ticking.
So,
what do you reckon? What do you reckon this week? Just, I mean, we'll wait for Parker before we start talking about some of the ins and outs, because obviously there's some pretty big talking points out of that. But at a basic level, we should be beating North, right?
Well, simply yes. That's as simple as you can put it. That they're a team that we should be beating easily. Technically, when you look at it, they've improved. they've improved massively from what they started the season, that's for sure. But even if we are missing half a team, the inexperience in their team, we should be able to cover very easily. But you just sort of think about last year in that game there, and we're sort of thinking the same thing to begin with. We're going, oh yeah, going to this game, the North aren't going to be much chop this year, and got out to a decent lead, and then overran us. We're thinking, okay, so what's happened to us? I think we put it down to all the new players we had saying that, oh yeah, they haven't gelled yet and this and that. And then it turned out they played the rest of the year and they started playing well together. So what's that, 14 months later? No excuse. I mean, there shouldn't be any excuse to beat them this weekend.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing I'm glad is that they've had a win because I didn't want to be the first one to lose to them. That just would have been like, yeah, just could see it happening going in. They're going in without a win, thinking, yep, that's going to happen to us. And yeah, I'm very happy they have got that one win under their belt now. So it's just, they're just one of those teams. You shut down their key players, and you should be fine. I mean, Cunnington's flying as he does. So yeah, as long as if we can keep him on the wraps and make sure he doesn't hold one of ours down too much, we should be able to win the battle in the middle there. But yeah, they got a few good young players who will cause a little bit of trouble, but they're inexperienced. We got a bit more. Well, as we know, we got the oldest list in the league, so our experience and age should be something that we can use against them and try to win the match.
Yeah, I'm like you said, I was 100% confident of losing that game had North not won a game already. I was sure that it was going to be us. Now that they've got one, I'm not so sure. I'm still not confident of beating them, but I guess we should beat them. I think that's just reality. I think you look at the talent levels on both lists, regardless of anything that's happened in the last 10 weeks. The talent levels on our list, even at half track, should be enough to beat them. To beat North. I guess my question is, what is the benefit of beating North this week? It's almost a lose-lose situation, because if we win, we're kind of papering over some cracks. We get a win, we get the 4 points, and we feel good for a couple of days, and then what? It's like, what do we have to show? What do we have to show this week in a win against North for it to be a legitimate victory? Is it 100 points? Is it 60 points? Is it 4 quarters of effort? Is 4 quarters of effort against North Melbourne enough to make amends of sorts? I mean, it's not going to be enough. It's not going to be enough. But is it going to be a step in the right direction? Or is this week, if we beat North by 10 goals, does it mean anything?
4 quarters of effort's your starting point. That's where it starts. It's basically, if we play 4 good quarters of football, we've seen recently they pushed Geelong right to the final quarter siren. They were almost in a position to beat them that day. So they can play some good football. So we do need to play 4 quarters. That's as simple as it is. So start there, get that right, get the matchups right, get the game plan right, and then I guess it does give confidence in the team itself. If we lose this game, everyone drops their head completely and goes, okay, yeah, we're completely cooked. But get a win, play good football, and the players sort of think, okay, look, it's not over. At the moment, we're a game and percentage out of the 8. We're not sitting last on the ladder looking 5 games behind or anything.
Yeah.
A game can turn a season. And I guess it could be any game of the season. So if we can pull back one of the margins that we've had, just as we've pulled one back a couple of weeks ago and then we've lost an even bigger one now, Well,
that's the thing, and that's the worry, is that you play a couple of good weeks, and we did, we played some okay football, and especially you look at that Geelong game, we played some really good football, and you have a game like that on Saturday night, and it ruins that entire process. It's not one step forward, 2 steps back. It's 1 step forward, 10 steps back, and so I'm really wary about going into this week and going and firing, because they've copped it. The club's copped it this week, and rightly so. And we've probably been a bit tame and tamer than I expected, a day or so ago. But rightly so, the club has copped it on a number of levels this week. And maybe they come out firing and they beat North by 80 points. Maybe they beat them by 30 points. But what does it show us? It doesn't show us anything, because we know that when they put 4 quarters of football together, when they put 3 quarters of football together, they're a really competitive team. So I'm really not sure what we can gauge from this week, and that worries me.
Yeah, as I'm saying, it's North who we have this week. If we think about any further after that, I mean, we don't know where we're playing next week already. It could be Sydney, and we're thinking, oh, that's going to be great for us. So as we know, I mean, we went up there last time thinking, oh, we should win a match, and got absolutely belted. So it's a bit of a worry if that gets moved, and then do we get Adelaide moved as well? It's, I mean, that's already in Queensland. Possibly it stays where it is. It's just a question of whether Queensland lock anyone out or anything. It's, it might be in Adelaide. Who knows now? But before the Sydney games, before it was meant to be moved or whatever. We looked at 3 games ahead, thinking, okay, look, we get those 3, we go 7-6 at the bye. And now we're sort of thinking, oh, everything's up in the air. We don't know what's going to happen now. Where are we going to be sitting? It's so it's given us a bit of a rethink of what's going to happen, and really do now. It's a focus of, okay, let's win the next match, not what's coming up after it, because now we don't know. It could be anything. So it's just a matter of, get this week, get the win, get back on track, see who we got next, see where it is next. We don't look any further ahead than this week.
That's right. Yeah, I think that's it. And he's back. He's back. The big man's back. Can you hear us, mate? You there? We can see ya. You there, mate? It always happens when we do a live episode. We always have technical difficulties, but we'll keep going. Hopefully Parko can join us soon. But we've got a question from actually a comment from Jimmy Dobson, and he basically says we need consistent 4 quarters. And Michael Bartle says we need weeks to become credible again. And I think that's right. We need to play 4 quarters against North, and we need to do it for a number of weeks after that to have any sense of credibility within the competition, within the footy landscape. Parko's walking around. He's just sent a message. He can't hear us, so this is going swimmingly. But got a question from Benji, little brother. Thanks for listening, mate. But H, thoughts on the mid-season draft? We heard Lethers on Monday say that if we were going to hit the mid-season draft, even though we've got 4, potentially 5 spots with Carlisle on the long-term injury list, that we're probably only going to take 1 player, if that. What are your thoughts, and what type of player are we looking for?
Well, it doesn't cost as much, does it? I think it costs us $50,000 a player or something. Why not hit it hard? Why not pick up 5 different players that are got completely different attributes that we can put into completely different positions? And I mean, pick out 5 players who are absolutely flying wherever they're playing. Like, I mean, as we're saying, I believe haven't spoken to Freeman. He's absolutely flying, but I don't know whether he's who we're looking for at the moment. But it's just, I don't know why we wouldn't hit it hard. spend a couple of dollars, fill the list up, and just have them there. And I don't know, throw something to one of them. Say, hey, get out there, show us what you can do. We've seen what you do in the local league. Play well enough, you stay in the team. That's they've got nothing to lose. We've got nothing to lose. So it could be worth. I don't know about one pick's not going to change anything. I don't think.
So yeah, it's interesting. It was. I thought that was a really interesting comment. I was there at the press conference, and I thought that was a really interesting comment. And I was surprised that no one asked why that is. And I thought that someone. I didn't get a chance to ask that question. I had a couple of other things that I had to get to, but I was surprised that no one asked why. Oh, I heard a breath from Parker there.
Hello.
There he is.
There he is.
He's back.
I'm back.
And no delay.
No delay too.
And no delay. Magnificent. We found the magic as well to every podcast from this position.
Moved into the 21st century.
Beautiful. Well, just to catch you up, we kind of finished the North chat, and we're now talking. Had a question from Benji on Facebook asking about the mid-season draft. We're talking about Lether's response at the press conference. If we're going to hit it, we only pick one player. We've got 4, potentially 5 list spots. Why is that? Is it a financial decision? Is the club in that bad a financial position that we can't take, a couple of essentially what are rookie listed players for 6 months and give them a shot with the get an opportunity to get a senior list position next year? Like what's the goal?
They're freeing up money for something, a target at the end of the year. Too much. Yeah. You're thinking 80 grand, that sort of thing. So unless it's just they've got a board and on the board there aren't players that suit what they think their needs are. So I mean,
I would have thought we have so many needs at the moment.
Yeah, that's right. Where do we start in that regard? So with Patton out for the year, with Carlisle probably out for the year, with Gresham out for the year, you'll get Marshall back, you'll get Jones back, but not for a while. So is it ball users? Is it pace? It's there's a lot of different areas that they can look at. But
the
tricky one. Have you touched on the changes yet?
Not yet. We're going to wait for you because obviously that's a big one. But just want to quickly touch on Nathan Freeman. There's a lot of Saints fans that want Nathan Freeman back at the club, given his form in the VFL, and I just kind of wanted to quickly touch on that because he's not the type of player that we need anymore. When he was drafted, he was Paddy Dangerfield type player, dynamic out of a contest, had incredibly powerful legs, bursting out of the centre, could play almost any position on the ground, incredible speed and power out of the middle, could kick at 60 off a step or two, and that's not him. And we know that he's killing it in the VFL. He's getting 40 a week. He's averaging 41 touches a week in the VFL, which is incredible. But, a lot of those are short kicks, handballs. He's winning clearances. We don't need – he's just not the type of player that we need at the moment. We've got a number of similar one-paced, one-track type of guys that we already are kind of not that happy with at the moment when you look at guys like Seb Ross and Luke Dunstan. I guess Brad Crouch has been up and down. In terms of Nathan Freeman now, the type of player that Nathan Freeman is not Nathan Freeman from 5 years ago or 6 years ago in his draft year. And he just doesn't offer us anything that is going to help us right now.
That's pretty much right.
Yeah,
I think from what I heard, I think
he's pretty much ruled it out. So,
yeah, and I think I've heard a whisper that Essendon may be in talks with him.
And Richmond is the big one.
Yeah. So
Richmond seem to lose the clearances every week. Yeah, that's right. Richmond lose the clearances every week. They need a contested beast in the middle. They're missing some guys in the middle that they'll get back over the next few weeks, but they're certainly short on depth in that area. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him end up at Richmond.
Looking at the a lot of the major questions, and there was a good one in there talking about how we've always used the phrase unacceptable, and the club has used the phrase unacceptable, but they almost accept it by the way they don't make the wholesale changes that they forecast. And if you look at the only big name of note that's out for St Kilda this week, so we'll go through the changes: out McKernan, Frawley, Loney, Clark, Bytel, in Claverino for his debut, so good luck to him. That'll be good to see. Wood, Highmore, Caulfield, Dunstan. So Clark's the only big name out, and he's out with a groin injury. So they've dropped McKernan, Frawley, Loney, and Bytel. So the Bytel dropping is frustrating, as it is for most people, but they've dropped Loney, who is always the first one dropped. They've dropped Frawley, who was the last one in, and they've dropped McKernan, who, with all due respect, isn't that good. So if you look at, the guys coming in, Dunstan, replacement in the middle, Highmore, replacement down back, no worries. Wood plays well at Marvel. Caulfield gets another opportunity. Claverino makes his debut. So we get to look at a kid, but there was not one significant dropping in that group. They've dropped a kid in Bytel who they shouldn't drop, but no one's been made an example of. Not Butler, not Hill, not, name your player, not Battle.
Yeah. It's Loney. Loney's the guy, right? And he's certainly not. He's not the profile type player that I think people were asking for, and that both Brett Ratton and Simon Lethlean alluded to this week. And to be fair, Leth has said that we're not going to drop someone for the sake of making a statement. He said that from the outset on Monday, but surely there were players ahead of Jack Bytel for omission. There had to be. And Bytel didn't have a great game on the weekend. There weren't many that did. It certainly wasn't his best. But he's just got to be in the team. He's an emergency. I'm pretty sure he's an emergency. He'll probably be the medical sub. And maybe there'll be a late change. I don't know. It's a shame to see Clark go out, obviously. But, I don't see any positive reason or any reason at all why they would have dropped Jack Bytel.
No, none at all. I think I was saying to you off air before, I said a few weeks ago, he should not miss a game for the rest of the year unless he's injured. There's no reason for him to not be in the side. He's shown more than anyone over the last month. He gets in there and he tries. I mean, he's a kid. He's thrown himself in there against these big bodies in the middle of the ground, and he's actually winning a lot of contests. And if I saw managed next to his name or something, I'd be like, look, okay, he might be a bit beaten up and a bit sore, but he's not. He's just been dropped. It'd be good if they came out and said, oh, look, sorry, they should have been managed. They'd be like, fair enough. Okay, let's give him a week off and then bring him back next week and he can start again. It just didn't make much sense if you're thinking, he's just been dropped, because he's done nothing wrong. Nothing wrong at all. The one name I was thinking, if there was to be a name set an example of, was possibly Membry. He's been a bit up and down. He's shown a little bit, but hasn't done a lot.
Yeah, that's Membry at least brings the effort.
Been all right.
He brings the effort, and he's way down in terms of his output and his ultimate performance. He's normally a magnificent kick for goal, and I think he's kicked 10 goals, 14 or something this year, or 8 goals, 12, something like that for the year, which is way down on his usual output. But I could certainly imagine it happening at a successful club. When you're not performing, it doesn't matter. When you're a successful club, it doesn't matter how hard you try. If you're not performing, you go out of the team. But, dropping Jack Loney and Jack Bytel is certainly not the answer. I thought Dan Butler was up there for a shot. And there are a few guys in the middle. Obviously Brad Hill is not lighting the world on fire. He's had a couple of good games, and I thought he certainly improved. Last week was a step back again. Max. The question with Max King is, do you give him a week? And why wouldn't you, if you're going to drop Jack Bytel, why wouldn't you drop Max King and give him a week in the twos to do it, or give him a week off and just say get your head right and come back fresh. It makes no sense, some of these decisions, and that Bytel one in particular, like I said before, is just a stunning decision, and almost I felt like my eyes popped out of my head when I saw that on the way home from work.
I think with King, I don't know whether VFL is going to be any better for him than playing against North Melbourne.
Well, possibly not. So, we said that last week. You don't know if is it worth playing in the VFL? Maybe not, but maybe he just needs a week off to get his head right, because he's got all the talent in the world, the physical traits, the skill, the talent, his effort is still pretty good, but it's just not working for him for whatever reason at the moment. And maybe he just needs a bit of time to relax. Like you said
out this week and kick a bag.
Yeah, like you said, Parker, a week ago. Get him. Tell him to go bowling, go see some movies or whatever. And obviously, you can't do that in Melbourne now, but just have some time on the couch and catch up on some shows or something. I don't know.
Yeah, that's right. But I mean, I guess our And that's the conundrum. Is it more work or less work? As we said, that is the key in that situation. But look, I mean, I'm not one who's baying for blood, but like if they're going to make a statement like that, then actually make one, because that's not one. But I mean, we lose Clark, unfortunately, to injury, who's an important player in the context of a game like this. So, obviously we're confronted with a game where we have everything to lose and not a lot to gain out of it. If we win the game, it is expected. It doesn't solve any problems. It doesn't mask. It doesn't cover any of the cracks. It doesn't do anything like that. And if you lose, it's an absolute disaster. So they have to tick the box. They've got to find a way to get through it, secure the result, move on, get to 5 and 6, no injuries, bank the performance, because obviously the consequences of defeat in a game like this are pretty severe. So obviously you're not in any position to take any game lightly. North Melbourne have had a dip of late. They fought games out reasonably well. So I know they got a touch up from Essendon, but their second half was better than ours, for example. They at least sort of ran it to the line reasonably well. So got to be on our toes. And if you win the game, you're 5 and 6. You then play Sydney and Adelaide, and who knows what you can do from there. Like it's not over. But yeah, clearly there's a lot of work to be done. But yeah, we appreciate everybody stopping by for the live broadcast. And obviously we had to do that given A, the situation the Saints are in, but also B, the situation that Victoria is in, which changes every so often. So yeah, we appreciate that. We look forward to Saturday twilight, and we'll reconvene normally, hopefully with a pretty big name guest next week ahead of our clash with the other Sydney Swans.